A wealthy man discovered a little girl huddled on the street, clutching a baby in her frail arms. Her answer, when asked where she came from, left him stunned. San Jose, USA, known for its picturesque cobblestone streets, vibrant colonial-style buildings, and serene charm, had drawn visitors from all over. Yet, that afternoon, the tranquility was shattered by an unexpected storm. Rain lashed down relentlessly, transforming the streets into flowing streams and forcing pedestrians to seek refuge under awnings and doorways. Daniel Wilson, a 53-year-old businessman, navigated the narrow roads in his meticulously maintained Range Rover. A man of stature and achievement, Daniel was respected for his business acumen and professional success. Yet for some time an inexplicable void had settled within him. Material wealth had not filled the emptiness gnawing at his soul. As raindrops drummed against his windshield, Daniel drifted into his thoughts, contemplating the monotony of his carefully constructed life. As he turned a corner, Daniel had to brake abruptly. A traffic light turned red, and the sluggish flow of vehicles ahead moved cautiously through the rainwater pooling on the pavement. While waiting, a scene caught his attention. Huddled against a rain-soaked wall was a small figure, barely distinguishable in the downpour. At first, he thought it was just a shadow. Then, he realized it was a girl, no older than 7, completely drenched, clutching something close to her chest. Curiosity gave way to concern as Daniel leaned forward for a clearer look. The small bundle in her arms wasn't just any object, it was a baby. A girl no taller than his car window, standing alone in a storm, sheltering someone even more vulnerable. The sight gripped his heart in a way he didn't expect. Without hesitation, he pulled to the curb and turned off the engine. Stepping into the rain, the cold droplets soaked him instantly, but he didn't care. He approached the girl cautiously, keeping his voice steady, not wanting to startle her. "Hi there, sweetheart," Daniel said gently, raising his voice slightly to compete with the storm's roar. "What are you doing out here all by yourself?" The child looked up slowly, her wide eyes clouded with fear and exhaustion. Her thin arms clutched the baby so tightly it seemed as though she was holding on to the only thing tethering her to the world. Daniel knelt before her, trying to appear as unthreatening as possible. "Where are your parents?" he asked, his voice soft but firm, searching for some logical explanation for her situation. "I don't have any," she whispered, her words barely audible. "They left me." Her response struck Daniel like a blow to the chest. How could anyone abandon a child, especially one caring for an infant? He swallowed hard, trying to steady his emotions. "Who left you here?" he pressed, his concern now etched into every word. "Do you know their name?" After a long pause, the girl lowered her gaze to the ground. Her voice quivered as she answered, "The woman from the orphanage. She said she didn't want to look after me or my brother anymore." The words hung heavy in the air. Daniel felt a surge of anger and sorrow. An orphanage, a place meant to shelter and protect, had discarded her like she was nothing. The weight of what this child and her baby brother must have endured overwhelmed him. He knew he couldn't just walk away. "Let's get you out of this rain," he said softly, extending his hand to her. "I'll take you somewhere safe, and we'll figure this out together." For a moment, the girl hesitated, her eyes darting between Daniel's face and his outstretched hand. Something in his kind expression seemed to reassure her, and she finally reached out, her small hand trembling as it touched his. Together they walked to his car. Daniel opened the back door and helped her settle in, ensuring the baby was secure before sliding into the driver's seat. In the rearview mirror, Daniel watched the girl as she cradled the infant, murmuring soft words of comfort. Though soaked to the bone, her sole focus was on keeping the baby calm. Daniel's resolve hardened. Whatever storm this child had weathered, he was determined to see her and her brother through it. They deserved safety, dignity, and a future far removed from the shadows of their past. Daniel Wilson, a wealthy businessman, navigated the flooded streets of San Jose, his thoughts heavy and unsettled. The rain hammered relentlessly against his car, and he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was on the brink of a profound shift. The abandoned children in his backseat, a little girl, and a baby had already begun to change the trajectory of his carefully ordered world. The rain continued to fall, obscuring the winding streets of the city, while Daniel's mind raced with questions. In the rearview mirror, he could see Mia and her baby brother Henry sitting quietly. Except for the occasional muffled sob, the car was silent. He wanted to ask her what had happened, to piece together the story that had led to such heartbreak, but he knew he needed to tread carefully. The last thing he wanted was to overwhelm or frighten the young girl, who had clearly endured more than any child should. Finally, Daniel decided to stop at a small, familiar coffee shop. The quaint cafe was a place he frequented for its warmth and calm atmosphere. It seemed the perfect spot to provide some comfort and perhaps learn more about the children's plight. Pulling up outside the rustic building, he noted the soft glow of light spilling through its fogged windows. Grabbing an umbrella from the trunk, he made his way to the back door of the car. "Come on, sweetheart," he said gently, shielding them both from the rain. "Let's go inside and warm up a bit." Mia nodded, still clutching Henry protectively to her chest. As they entered the cafe, the aroma of freshly baked bread enveloped them, providing an immediate sense of refuge. Behind the counter, Mrs. Lauren, the middle-aged owner of the cafe, looked up in surprise at the drenched trio. "Daniel, what on earth is going on? Who are these kids?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "It's a long story," Lauren Daniel replied, leading Mia to a table near the fireplace. "But I could use your help. Could you bring us something warm to drink and a towel? These kids are freezing." "Of course, Daniel. I'll be right back," Lauren said, hurrying off toward the kitchen. Daniel helped Mia settle into a chair before carefully taking Henry from her arms. The baby felt impossibly small in his hands, and Daniel was struck by the fragility of the little life he held. Mia watched him closely, her wary eyes scanning his every move. "What's your name?" Daniel asked softly, hoping to ease her apprehension. "Mia," she replied, her voice no louder than a whisper. "And your brother?" he asked, glancing at the baby in his arms. "Henry," Mia said, her worried expression betraying the weight of responsibility she carried for someone so young. Daniel nodded, his heart aching for her. "Mia, can you tell me what happened? Why did the woman from the orphanage leave you and Henry out here?" Mia hesitated, her small hands gripping the edge of the table. Daniel remained silent, offering her the space to gather her thoughts. Moments later, Lauren returned with 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate and a soft towel. "Here you go," Lauren said kindly. "This should help warm you up." "Thank you," Daniel murmured, sliding one of the mugs toward Mia. She wrapped her hands around it but didn't drink right away. The tension between them hung heavy until, at last, Mia began to speak. "The woman from the orphanage said she couldn't take care of us anymore," she said haltingly. "She was angry all the time. She told me we were a burden and that no one wanted kids like us." Daniel's grip on the towel tightened as he listened. The pain in Mia's voice was almost unbearable. "She drove us into the city," Mia continued. "Then she stopped the car, told me to get out with Henry, and left. I tried to follow her, but she just drove away." As Mia finished, tears slipped silently down her cheeks. Daniel placed a steady hand on hers, offering reassurance. "Mia, you won't have to go back there," he promised, his voice firm but gentle. "But I need your help to understand what's happening at that orphanage. If they treated you and Henry like this, imagine what they might be doing to other children." Mia looked up, her tear-filled eyes reflecting a fragile mix of fear and hope. For the first time, she felt as though someone cared, someone who could help. "I trust you," she said quietly, her voice carrying a strength Daniel hadn't expected. "And I won't let you down," Daniel replied. "We'll figure this out together, and I'll make sure you and Henry are safe. That's a promise." Inside the cafe, as the storm continued to rage outside, an unspoken bond formed between them. Daniel, once a man consumed by his own emptiness, now felt a fierce determination to fight for Mia, Henry, and the countless other children who might be suffering in silence. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he couldn't turn back now. Whatever it took, he was ready. The storm raging over San Jose showed no signs of letting up. Heavy raindrops beat against the cafe's windows in a relentless rhythmic cascade. Inside, the soft glow of the fireplace and the welcoming scent of freshly brewed hot chocolate created a fragile sanctuary from the chaos outside. Daniel Wilson sat at a small table, his gaze fixed on the two children before him, Mia, a frail girl clutching a steaming mug, and her baby brother Henry, who rested peacefully in Daniel's lap. Mia's small hands trembled as they wrapped around the mug Mrs. Lauren had brought over moments earlier. She sipped cautiously, as though unfamiliar with such kindness. Her clothes were soaked, her expression guarded. Henry, no bigger than a bundle of cloth, slept soundly, his breath shallow yet steady. Daniel couldn't help but notice his sunken cheeks, a glaring testament to the hunger and neglect these children had endured. Daniel's thoughts raced, tangling with disbelief and anger. A man of action and practicality, he had faced countless challenges in his life, yet nothing could have prepared him for this. He was now responsible for two innocent lives, thrust upon him by a cruel twist of fate. As he studied Mia's face, he saw a hint of calm returning, but the fear in her eyes lingered like a shadow. "Mia," Daniel said gently, leaning forward, "can you tell me what happened?" His voice was soft, measured. He didn't want to rush her, knowing she needed time to trust him. "You're safe now," he added, his tone reassuring. Mia hesitated, her small fingers tightening around the mug. For a moment she seemed to wrestle with the decision to speak. Finally, with a deep, shaky breath, she began. Her voice was quiet, tinged with emotion. "Henry and I lived in an orphanage," she murmured, avoiding Daniel's gaze. "It was a big place with lots of kids, but the woman who ran it, she wasn't nice. She always said we were a burden, that no one wanted kids like us." Daniel felt a sharp pang in his chest. The weight of her words settled heavily on him. How could anyone say such cruel things to a child? But he remained silent, sensing she had more to share. One day, Mia continued, her voice trembling. "Henry wouldn't stop crying. He was hungry, but she never gave us enough to eat. She got so mad, she said she was done with us." Mia's grip on the mug tightened as she fought to steady herself. "She put us in her car, drove us into the city, and stopped on a corner. She told me to get out, to take Henry, and that no one would care if we disappeared." Mrs. Lauren, who had been quietly tending to customers at the counter, paused mid-motion, her expression reflecting the growing tension in the room. She glanced at Daniel, whose face remained calm, but whose eyes betrayed his simmering anger. "She left us there," Mia whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I tried to follow, but she just drove away." Daniel clenched his jaw, his anger bubbling beneath the surface. The image of these two children abandoned in the cold rain stirred a protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. He leaned forward, his voice firm yet comforting. "Mia," he asked, "do you remember the name of the orphanage, or where it's located?" Mia nodded hesitantly. "It's outside the city, on the road to the village near San Jose. They call it the House of Children." Daniel's mind raced. He had heard the name before, though it had never crossed his radar as anything of concern. Now he knew something was terribly wrong. "You were brave to tell me this," Daniel said, his tone steady, meeting Mia's tearful eyes. "I promise you we're going to figure out what's happening at that orphanage. And I swear to you, no one is going to hurt you or Henry ever again." Though Mia's shoulders remained hunched, Daniel saw a flicker of relief cross her face, as if a small weight had been lifted. But her voice remained cautious as she asked, "You're not going to send us back there, are you?" Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, Mia, never. I'll find another way to handle this." Mrs. Lauren approached then, setting a plate of warm cookies on the table. "Here you go, sweetheart," she said with a kind smile. "Eat up, they're all for you." Mia hesitated, but eventually reached for a cookie, nibbling it slowly. Watching her, Daniel felt the enormity of the situation weigh on him. These children needed more than a meal and a promise. They needed protection and care, something he was determined to provide. Pulling out his phone, Daniel made several calls. First, he contacted Commissioner James, a trusted friend with the authority to investigate the orphanage. Then, he dialed Jason Walker, his lawyer, to discuss the legal steps needed to ensure Mia and Henry's safety. As he ended the final call, Daniel's resolve deepened. He didn't know exactly where this path would lead, but one thing was certain: he would do whatever it took to protect these children and uncover the truth. The morning sun began to rise gently over San Jose, piercing through the remnants of storm clouds. Damp streets shimmered in the soft light, and the fresh air carried the earthy aroma of wet soil and scattered leaves. Inside Daniel Wilson's spacious, inviting apartment, an unusual stillness prevailed, a surreal calm after the storm. Daniel, already awake, leaned against the kitchen counter, the weight of the previous night still heavy on his mind. He hadn't slept much, his thoughts consumed with Mia and Henry and the unsettling truths they had shared. Though Daniel was a man rarely shaken, the plight of the two siblings had stirred something profound within him. He was certain that something sinister was hidden behind the walls of the little angel's home, and he was determined to uncover it. In the living room, Mia lay curled up on the oversized couch, cocooned in a soft blanket. Her face, serene in sleep, carried traces of the hardship she had endured. Daniel lingered a moment, watching her with a mix of sadness and responsibility. In the adjoining room, baby Henry slept soundly in a makeshift crib Daniel had assembled from whatever he could find. Determined not to waste another second, Daniel reached for his phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. The line connected, and Commissioner James, a trusted friend and seasoned police officer, answered with his usual efficiency. "James, good morning. I need your help urgently," Daniel said, skipping pleasantries. "Morning, Wilson. What's going on?" James replied, his tone direct and professional. Daniel exhaled, steadying himself. "I found a young girl and her baby brother last night abandoned on the street. They're from a place called Little Angel's Home, and the girl told me some alarming things about it. I need you to look into this discreetly. Something doesn't sit right." James paused, likely processing the unexpected information. "Little Angel's Home? I've heard the name, but there's never been a formal complaint against them. I'll start digging, but Daniel, be careful. If this is as serious as it sounds, we might be dealing with some dangerous people," he warned. "I hear you," Daniel replied, his voice firm. "But these kids need help. If there's any truth to this, it has to stop. Thank you, James." After hanging up, Daniel allowed himself a moment of reflection. It was a small step, but an essential one. He returned to the kitchen and began preparing a simple breakfast for Mia and Henry, hoping to provide them with a semblance of comfort. As he buttered toast and poured juice, his mind kept returning to the mysterious Erica Bridges the woman Mia had described. What kind of person could run an orphanage and see children as nothing more than burdens? While he worked, the sound of soft footsteps drew his attention. Turning, he saw Mia standing in the doorway, wrapped tightly in her blanket. Her weary eyes, large and cautious, held an air of vulnerability yet unspoken strength. "Good morning," Mia, Daniel greeted warmly. "Did you sleep well?" Mia hesitated, then nodded shyly. "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Come sit down, I'm making breakfast. Henry's still asleep, so we've got time," Daniel said, guiding her to the table already set with a few plates. As Mia sat, she watched Daniel with quiet curiosity. To her, this was uncharted territory, an adult showing her kindness without expectation. Tentatively, she took a bite of toast, savoring the unfamiliar taste of something made with care. Daniel sat across from her, his tone gentle, as he broached the subject weighing on his mind. "Mia, can you tell me anything else about the orphanage? Anything you remember could help us figure out what's happening there?" Mia hesitated, her small hands clutching the edge of the table. After a moment she nodded, her voice soft but steady. "There were lots of kids like me, but some." She paused, choosing her words carefully. Some were taken away, and we never saw them again. Erica said they found homes, but I didn't believe her. Daniel's chest tightened. The implication of her words was chilling. Children disappearing without explanation. This was far darker than he had anticipated. "Erica, she's the one in charge?" Daniel asked, his tone calm but deliberate. Mia nodded. "Yes, Mrs. Erica. She didn't like me. She always said I was too much trouble, and Henry cried too much." Her voice quivered, and Daniel could see the pain of reliving those memories etched on her face. A mix of anger and resolve surged through Daniel. He couldn't ignore the growing evidence that something deeply wrong was happening at the orphanage. Yet, he knew he would need to move carefully. This was no ordinary case of neglect. Just as the weight of his thoughts pressed down, the phone rang. Daniel excused himself and answered quickly. Commissioner James's grave voice came through the line. "Daniel, I've been asking around discreetly, and it seems the little angel's home isn't what it appears to be. Rumors suggest they're involved in something much darker, possibly child trafficking," James said. Daniel felt his stomach drop. "Child trafficking," he repeated, the words almost too heavy to voice. "I knew this was serious, but this. We need to act fast, James. Those kids are in danger. We need evidence to shut this down and put everyone involved behind bars." "I'm with you," James assured him. "But we can't rush this. We need to tread carefully. I'll put a team together and start planning our next steps." Ending the call, Daniel returned to the kitchen, his resolve stronger than ever. As he looked at Mia, still nibbling on her toast, he silently vowed to see this through. No matter the risk, he would ensure she and Henry and every other child were safe. This fight had only just begun. "Can you keep the kids safe for now?" asked Commissioner James. "Yes, I'll make sure they're secure," Daniel Wilson replied firmly. "Let me know as soon as you have a plan." He ended the call, the weight of responsibility pressing heavier on his shoulders with every passing moment. Daniel walked back into the kitchen, where Mia sat quietly, her hands folded on the table. Her wide, searching eyes seemed to sense that something was wrong. Daniel knelt beside her, meeting her gaze with calm determination. "Mia," he began gently, "I promise I'll do everything I can to protect you and Henry. But I need your trust. Can you tell me everything you know about that orphanage?" His voice was steady, filled with both sincerity and urgency. "Every detail could help us save other kids too." Mia looked at him, her small frame visibly tense. Her eyes, a mix of fear and hope, searched his face for reassurance. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she gave a small nod. "I'll tell you everything I know," she said, her voice carrying a hint of newfound determination. As Daniel listened closely to Mia's account, the depth of the situation began to take shape. The enormity of what he was stepping into was undeniable, but so was his resolve. He wasn't facing this alone. With Commissioner James's resources and Mia's courage, Daniel knew he had the strength to uncover the truth behind Erica Bridges and her sinister operations at the children's home. The investigation was just beginning, and Daniel understood the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But no matter what it took, he was prepared to see it through. Later that evening, on a call with his lawyer, Jason Walker, Daniel spoke with quiet conviction. "I'll handle everything," he assured. "Let's meet first thing tomorrow to discuss the details. In the meantime, make sure the kids are in a safe place." He thanked Jason and hung up, feeling an even stronger sense of purpose. He glanced back at Mia, now finishing her meal. She looked so small, yet her strength shone through in every hesitant move she made to trust him. Daniel knew this moment would define his next steps. "Mia," he said gently, his tone warm yet firm, "tonight you and Henry are staying with me. I'll take care of you both, and tomorrow we'll figure out the rest. Does that sound okay?" Mia looked up at him, her large, frightened eyes reflecting as much hope as fear. Slowly she nodded without a word. But in her silence, Daniel saw something shift, a glimmer of belief that maybe, just maybe, things could be okay. As the night deepened over San Jose, the storm outside began to ease. The relentless rain gave way to a tentative calm. But within Daniel's heart and mind, he knew the real storm was only just beginning. For Mia, for Henry, and for every child left voiceless in that dark orphanage, Daniel resolved to face it head-on. No matter the cost, he was ready to fight for them to be their shield in a world that had so cruelly failed them. The sun was already high in the sky, though its rays barely reached the narrow, rain-soaked streets of San Jose. Daniel Wilson sat quietly in his living room, a blend of tension and resolve simmering within him. Across the room, young Mia played intently with some toys he had picked up earlier that morning, while baby Henry slept soundly in a makeshift crib nearby. Despite the warmth and safety of his home, Daniel felt the weight of an impending storm not outside, but in the journey that lay ahead. The unsettling revelations Mia had shared about the orphanage, Little Angel's home, and the children who seemed to vanish without a trace haunted him. Daniel had spent hours poring over her words, piecing together the troubling narrative. He had already spoken with Commissioner James, who had begun a discreet investigation, but Daniel knew that wasn't enough. To uncover the truth, he needed to dig deeper on his own. Determined, Daniel grabbed a light jacket and a hat to shield himself from the glaring sun. Before leaving, he approached Mia, who sat cross-legged on the living room rug, piecing together a puzzle. "Mia," he said softly, kneeling down to her level, "I need to step out for a little while, but I promise I'll be back soon. You'll stay here with Henry, and Mrs. Lauren will come by to help you take care of him, okay?" Mia looked up at him, her young face a mixture of trust and unease. She nodded silently, her small hands pausing over the puzzle pieces. Daniel could see the lingering fear in her eyes, but he also sensed the beginning of something fragile yet vital trust. "I'll be back soon," he promised, giving her a reassuring smile before heading out the door. Driving through the damp streets of San Jose, Daniel's thoughts raced. Worry for the children weighed heavily on him, but so did the urgent need to uncover what was really happening at Little Angel's home. He couldn't rely on rumors or fragmented accounts. He needed hard evidence, something undeniable to expose the truth about Erica Bridges and the shadowy operations of the orphanage. Daniel's first stop was City Hall. If there was a trail of irregularities, it would likely be hidden among the public records. As he stepped into the small, historic building, a receptionist greeted him with a polite smile. "Good morning, Mr. Wilson. How can I assist you today?" "Good morning," Daniel replied, keeping his tone steady and professional. "I'd like to access some records on an orphanage called Little Angel's Home. Specifically, I'm looking for details about its founding, current management, and any recorded complaints or irregularities." The receptionist blinked in mild surprise but nodded. "Of course. Please wait in the reading room." While I retrieved the files, she disappeared down a narrow hallway, leaving Daniel alone to gather his thoughts. The reading room was a quiet, cozy space filled with the faint scent of old paper and polished wood. Daniel sat down at a heavy table, his fingers tapping lightly against its surface as his mind replayed Mia's words. Missing children, Erica's cold indifference, and an institution that was supposed to protect yet seemed to harbor sinister secrets. Minutes later, the receptionist returned, her arms laden with yellowed folders and brittle documents. "Here's everything we have on Little Angel's home," she said, placing the stack before him. "Thank you," Daniel replied, wasting no time as he began to sift through the files. The earliest records painted an image of hope. The orphanage had been established nearly 2 decades ago by a philanthropist named Maria Velasco, who had used her personal fortune to create a sanctuary for orphaned and abandoned children. At first glance, the initiative seemed noble, a beacon of compassion. But as Daniel delved deeper, the narrative shifted. Around 5 years ago, Maria Velasco had passed away under unclear circumstances. Control of the orphanage was handed over to a woman named Erica Bridges. Seeing that name in print sent a chill through Daniel. It was the same name Mia had spoken of with such fear. The records on Erica were sparse. She had seized full control of the orphanage after Maria's death, but her background remained shadowy. However, one detail stood out. Erica appeared to have connections with several influential figures, including prominent business people and local politicians. Those ties might explain why, despite troubling rumors, no serious investigations had been launched into her activities. As Daniel flipped through more pages, his eyes landed on a damning report. An internal document from a former employee detailed how Erica frequently moved children without adhering to legal protocols. These relocations lacked proper documentation, and the children involved simply vanished without explanation. The report didn't name its author, but it noted that the individual had attempted to report these irregularities before being abruptly dismissed. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. This could be a critical lead. Whoever wrote that report might hold the key to unraveling the orphanage's dark secrets. Gathering his notes, Daniel thanked the receptionist and stepped back into the sunlight, his mind racing. He now understood the scale of the battle he was stepping into. Erica Bridges wasn't just another caretaker, she was a manipulative and connected adversary, one who wouldn't go down without a fight. As Daniel climbed into his car and started the engine, he glanced at the papers on the passenger seat. The shadows surrounding Little Angel's home were deep and dangerous, but Daniel was resolute. Whatever it took, he would uncover the truth and ensure no more children were lost to Erica's web of deceit. Back in his car, Daniel Wilson picked up his phone and called Commissioner James. "James, I'm leaving City Hall now. I've uncovered some troubling information about the children's home and Erica Bridges. It appears she has powerful connections and might be involved in something much bigger." "Have you made any progress with the investigation?" Daniel asked, his tone edged with growing urgency. "Wilson, we're working on it. I've received some intel from reliable sources confirming your suspicions. It seems Erica is using the orphanage as a front for illegal activities, possibly even child trafficking. But we need solid evidence to move forward. I'm assembling a team to dig deeper. But we have to keep this low profile." "Erica has eyes and ears everywhere," James replied, his voice steady but grave. "Understood, James. I'll keep investigating on my end. Let me know as soon as you have something concrete," Daniel said before ending the call. He leaned back in his seat, letting out a long breath. Time was running out. Erica Bridges and her network of accomplices were likely already covering their tracks. Acting swiftly was vital, but Daniel knew a hasty move could jeopardize everything. He had to be precise, careful, and above all, smart to protect Mia, Henry, and the countless other children at risk. As Daniel drove back to his apartment, his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He felt the weight of the new information pressing on him, but also a renewed determination to unmask Erica's criminal activities. He knew every step had to be calculated. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth, it was about safeguarding lives. When he finally reached his apartment in San Jose, the midday sun was shining brightly, casting long shadows on the quiet streets. Yet inside, Daniel felt anything but calm. As he opened the door, the sound of Mia's laughter greeted him, a brief, soothing reminder of why he was fighting this battle. Mia was on the floor, arranging a set of toys, while Henry slept peacefully nearby. Watching over them was Mrs. Lauren, the kind-hearted woman who had offered her support without hesitation. "Good morning, Mr. Wilson," Mrs. Lauren said warmly, standing as he entered. "I hope you were able to handle what you needed. The children are doing well." Daniel smiled faintly, momentarily comforted by the sight of the children in safe hands. "Thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate all you're doing," he said, though the gravity of the situation quickly resurfaced. "I need to speak with you. Do you have a moment?" Sensing his urgency, Lauren gestured for Mia to stay in the living room. "Of course, Daniel. What's going on?" she asked, concern flickering in her eyes as she followed him to the kitchen. Daniel closed the door behind them, lowering his voice. "Lauren, I've uncovered some deeply troubling information about the orphanage Mia and Henry came from. It seems the woman in charge, Erica Bridges, is involved in illegal activities. I don't have all the details yet, but there are strong indications that she's using the orphanage as a front for child trafficking," he explained, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. Lauren clasped her hands to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. My God, Daniel, how could something so horrific be happening right here in our town? What are you planning to do? She asked, her voice trembling. I need your help, Lauren. Commissioner James is working on an investigation, but we need to proceed cautiously. Erica has connections, and we can't afford to make a misstep. In the meantime, I have to ensure Mia and Henry stay safe. Can I count on you to keep looking after them while I sort this out? Daniel asked, his gaze steady. Lauren nodded without hesitation. Of course, Daniel. I'll do everything I can to help these kids. They've been through so much already, they deserve to feel safe. Thank you, Daniel said, his voice filled with gratitude. You have no idea how much this means to me. As Lauren returned to the children, Daniel retreated to his home office. Sitting at his desk, he spread out the documents he'd gathered from City Hall, combing through every detail in search of a breakthrough. His mind lingered on a report that mentioned a former employee, someone who had tried to report Erica's suspicious activities before being fired. That person might be the key to unraveling the truth. Grabbing his phone, Daniel dialed Commissioner James again. James, I've been going through the documents, and it looks like there was an employee at the children's home who tried to expose Erica but was dismissed. This person could be pivotal to our investigation. Can you track them down and find out where they are now? Daniel asked, his voice resolute. I'm on it, Wilson, James replied without hesitation. I'll reach out to some contacts and see if we can locate this individual. It might take a little time, but I'll keep you updated. Thanks, James. Keep me posted, Daniel said, hanging up. Sitting back in his chair, Daniel let out another deep breath. He knew the road ahead would be perilous, but there was no turning back. Erica Bridges had to be stopped, not just for Mia and Henry, but for all the children who had suffered in silence. For the first time in years, Daniel felt a sense of purpose, a clarity that cut through the fear and uncertainty. Whatever it took, he would see this through to the end. Back in his car, Daniel Wilson picked up his phone and called Commissioner James once more. James, I'm leaving City Hall now. I've come across some troubling information about the children's home and Erica Bridges. It seems she has powerful connections and might be involved in something much bigger. Have you made any progress with the investigation? Daniel asked, his urgency barely masked. Wilson, we're on it, James replied, his voice steady but resolute. Reliable sources confirm your suspicions. It looks like Erica is using the orphanage as a front for illegal activities, possibly even child trafficking. But we need solid evidence to proceed. I'm assembling a team for a deeper investigation. But we have to stay under the radar. Erica has allies in high places, James cautioned. I understand, James. Keep me updated, Daniel replied. His mind raced as he ended the call. Every passing moment felt like lost time. Erica and her accomplices were likely already working to cover their tracks. Daniel knew he couldn't wait idly. He spent the rest of the day tirelessly piecing together more clues and laying the groundwork for the fight ahead. He realized he would need more than just James. He needed people willing to risk everything to stand against Erica's powerful network. By late afternoon, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Daniel checked on Mia and Henry. Henry was still soundly asleep, while Mia sat near Mrs. Lauren, gazing silently out the window. How are you holding up? Mia, Daniel asked, sitting beside her on the couch. I'm okay, Mr. Wilson, she replied quietly, though her small voice trembled. But I'm scared. What if Erica finds us? Her wide eyes reflected a fragile hope, clinging to his promise of safety. Daniel rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You don't need to worry, Mia. You and Henry are safe here. I won't let anyone harm you again, he said with firm conviction. Mia nodded, trying to find solace in his words, though fear still lingered in her expression. As night fell over San Jose, Daniel felt the looming weight of the corruption he was up against. The decisions he made in the coming hours would ripple far beyond his own life, affecting countless children who couldn't fight for themselves. Secluded in his study, Daniel pored over every scrap of evidence he had collected. Each piece of information brought him closer to the dark truths buried within the orphanage's walls. His phone rang, cutting through the silence. Recognizing the number, Daniel answered quickly. "James, what have you found?" he asked, his voice calm but charged with anticipation. "Wilson, things are escalating," James warned. "Erica might know someone's investigating her. If she catches on, she'll move fast to destroy evidence or escape." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Time was running out, and any misstep could jeopardize everything. "Understood, James. Let me know as soon as you have anything actionable," he said, ending the call. The next morning, Daniel left his apartment after ensuring that Mia and Henry were safe under Lauren's watchful care. He drove through the quiet streets of San Jose, his thoughts heavy with the stakes of what lay ahead. Sean Cox, the former employee brave enough to speak out, was risking everything by cooperating. Daniel couldn't fail him or the children still in danger. When he arrived at the station, Commissioner James was waiting for him. The lines of exhaustion were evident on James's face, but so was his unwavering commitment to justice. His tired eyes carried a fire that mirrored Daniel's own. "Wilson, you're here. We need to move fast," James said, leading him into the meeting room. The dimly lit space was lined with maps, notes, and photographs. Around the table sat James's most trusted officers, hand-picked for their integrity and immunity to corruption. Daniel recognized a few faces and felt a glimmer of reassurance knowing they shared his resolve. "This is Daniel Wilson, our primary informant on the case," James introduced him. "Wilson, share what you've uncovered." Daniel spread his notes on the table, carefully explaining everything Sean had revealed. He detailed Erica's manipulation of records, the suspicious financial transactions, the fabricated adoptions, and the horrifying possibility of child trafficking. As he spoke, the room grew heavy with silence, the weight of the revelations settling over the officers. "We need solid evidence to dismantle her operation," Daniel concluded. "We know she's forging documents and relocating children illegally, but we have to catch her in the act, and we need to rescue any children who are still in danger. Sean has given us a few leads on potential locations, but it's fragmented." James nodded, his jaw tightening as he absorbed the information. "Here's the plan," he began, his voice commanding. "We'll split into teams. One group will focus on surveillance and documentation to gather irrefutable evidence. The other will monitor the orphanage. If we detect any movement, we'll act immediately. The children's safety is our top priority." Daniel nodded, feeling the gravity of the task ahead. The team's plan was meticulous, but the risks were undeniable. Erica's network was vast and dangerous. Any slip-up could mean devastating consequences. Yet with Sean's courage, James's leadership, and his own relentless determination, Daniel knew they stood a fighting chance. As the meeting wrapped up, Daniel felt the fire of purpose burn brighter within him. The stakes were impossibly high, but so was his resolve. For Mia, for Henry, and for all the children who had suffered in silence, he was prepared to fight this battle to the very end. Back in his car, Daniel Wilson picked up his phone and called Commissioner James once more. "James, I'm leaving City Hall now. I've come across some troubling information about the children's home and Erica Bridges. It looks like she has powerful connections and could be involved in something much larger." "Have you made any progress with the investigation?" Daniel asked, his urgency intensifying. "Wilson, we're on it," James replied, his tone steady but serious. "I'll dig deeper and track down the employee you mentioned. It might take time, but I'll do everything I can to locate them. In the meantime, stay vigilant. I've heard that Erica might suspect someone's looking into the orphanage. If she realizes how close we are, she could destroy evidence or worse." Daniel felt a chill run through him. Time was slipping away, and one misstep could risk everything. "Understood, James. Keep me posted the moment you have anything concrete," he replied, ending the call. Sitting in his car, Daniel realized he couldn't afford to wait passively. He spent the rest of the day making calls and gathering every shred of information he could find on Erica and her web of influence. He knew he would need more allies, people willing to stand against Erica and her seemingly untouchable network. As the afternoon wore on, Daniel's phone buzzed unexpectedly. Sean Cox's voice came through, thick with tension. "Wilson, I think someone's tailing me. I'm worried Erica might know what we're doing. I need to get out of here now," Sean said, his fear unmistakable. Daniel's heart raced. If Sean was being followed, it meant Erica was already making her move. "Sean, stay calm. I'll have a team pick you up. Avoid unnecessary risks and head straight to the safe spot we discussed. I'll make sure you get there safely," Daniel said, keeping his voice steady despite the mounting worry. As soon as the call ended, Daniel dialed James. "James, we've got a problem. Erica might already know what we're up to. Sean's safety is at risk, and we need to act fast. Send a team to extract him immediately, but make sure it's done discreetly. We can't afford to tip her off," Daniel urged. James responded without hesitation. "I'm on it. I'll send a team now. But Wilson, watch your own back. If Erica knows about Sean, she might be keeping tabs on all of us. This is getting more dangerous by the minute." Daniel exhaled sharply, his mind racing. The tension in San Jose felt almost tangible, as though the entire city were holding its breath. He knew he had to protect Sean, ensure the safety of the children, and collect irrefutable evidence to bring Erica down, all while staying one step ahead of her. That evening, James sent Daniel the location where Sean was hiding. Without delay, Daniel left his apartment, assuring Mrs. Lauren he wouldn't be gone long. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth from the previous day's rain. Daniel navigated through the dimly lit streets, leaving the city's glow behind as he approached the outskirts. After half an hour, Daniel reached the small village James had described. It was a cluster of simple homes, most constructed of adobe, with clay roofs, lining a narrow dirt path. A few faint lights flickered in the windows, offering a hint of life in the otherwise silent neighborhood. Daniel parked his car and double-checked the address James had sent. He approached a modest house tucked away from the others. The door was slightly ajar, and an unsettling stillness hung in the air. Daniel hesitated before knocking firmly. "Sean, it's Daniel. Are you in there?" he called out softly, his voice carrying in the quiet night. There was no response. Daniel felt a knot of unease tighten in his chest. The dim light spilling through the crack in the door revealed little, and the silence inside was unnerving. Gritting his teeth, Daniel stepped closer, prepared for whatever lay beyond the threshold. Daniel Wilson parked his car and stepped out, glancing at the dimly lit windows scattered across the quiet village on the outskirts of San Jose. He double-checked the address Commissioner James had sent him and approached a modest house set back from the others. The door was slightly ajar, and Daniel felt a twinge of unease as he knocked and waited. Footsteps approached cautiously, and the door creaked open just enough to reveal an older man. His face was deeply lined with wrinkles, his eyes reflecting years of fear and weariness. Sean Cox, Daniel asked softly. "I'm Daniel Wilson. Commissioner James told me where to find you. I need to talk to you." Sean hesitated, scanning Daniel's face for signs of trustworthiness before opening the door a bit wider. "James said you'd be coming. Come in, but keep your voice down." "I can't risk anyone overhearing us," Sean whispered, his voice trembling slightly as he stepped back to let Daniel inside. The house was sparse, with only the bare essentials. Sean led Daniel to a small room with a worn table and 2 chairs. He gestured for Daniel to sit before sinking into the other chair, his body tense. "What do you want from me?" Wilson Sean asked bluntly, folding his hands tightly as if bracing for bad news. Daniel leaned forward, his tone calm yet filled with urgency. "Sean, I know you tried to report Erica Bridges and what's been happening at the children's home. I know you lost your job and had to go into hiding because of it. But you're not alone anymore. Commissioner James and I are investigating her. We need your help to expose her and stop this once and for all." Daniel explained, his voice steady but empathetic. Sean lowered his head, his hands trembling as he ran them over his face. You don't understand what you're asking. Erica is dangerous. She's got powerful connections, Sean said, his voice carrying the weight of past trauma. When I started noticing what was really happening at the orphanage, I tried to report it, but no one wanted to listen. They said I was making it up. Then they fired me and threatened me. They told me if I didn't disappear, I'd regret it. That's why I'm here, hiding. Daniel sat back for a moment, absorbing the fear and bitterness in Sean's words. Then he leaned forward again, his voice filled with quiet determination. Sean, I understand your fear. But think about the kids still there, the ones who might vanish if we don't act. How many more will suffer if we don't stop Erica? I promise to protect you, but we need your help. You know more than anyone what's going on in that home. Your truth could save lives. Sean looked up, his eyes searching Daniel's face. The room was thick with silence as he seemed to wrestle with his inner demons. Finally, he exhaled heavily and nodded, resignation giving way to a flicker of resolve. Erica is involved in child trafficking, Sean admitted, his voice raw. I saw the transactions. I saw them taking the kids away. I never knew where they went, but it wasn't good. She made it all look legal, like it was adoption. But the paperwork was fake, and the kids, they just vanished. I tried to go to the authorities, but Erica's got people everywhere. If James is involved, maybe there's hope. I'll help you, Wilson. But we have to be careful. Relief washed over Daniel, though he felt the weight of what lay ahead. Thank you, Sean. I know this isn't easy, but your courage will make a difference. I need you to tell me everything you know, every detail. Together we'll build a case strong enough to bring Erica down for good. Sean nodded, his voice steadier as he began recounting everything. He described how Erica manipulated records, forged documents, and orchestrated the illegal movement of children. He spoke of suspicious financial transactions and how employees who questioned her were silenced. Each detail painted a chilling picture of Erica's network. Daniel took careful notes, feeling the gravity of the revelations. This was the kind of evidence they needed, but it also meant the stakes had risen. One wrong move could put Sean and others at risk. After hours of conversation, Sean finally leaned back, exhaustion etched into his face. That's everything I know. I hope it's enough to take her down. But please, Wilson, be careful. Erica and her people have no limits. Daniel reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Sean's shoulder. Thank you, Sean. This is more than enough. I promise we'll use this to bring her down. And I'll make sure you're safe throughout the process. As Daniel left the house and walked back to his car, the weight of the responsibility pressed harder on him. The information Sean had shared could be the key to dismantling Erica's operation, but it also meant every step moving forward would have to be precise. Driving back to San Jose, the darkness of the night seemed heavier, but Daniel felt a renewed sense of resolve. He was closer than ever to uncovering the truth, and he knew he couldn't stop now. The lives of countless children depended on what he would do next. The night in San Jose brought a haunting stillness. The streets, usually alive with the city's nighttime energy, were eerily empty, as though the entire town held its breath. Only the faint sound of wind and Mia's occasional murmurs, perhaps dreams of a better world, far removed from her harsh reality, broke the quiet. Inside Daniel Wilson's apartment, he sat at the dining table surrounded by files and scattered notes. The soft flicker of his laptop screen illuminated his tense expression as message after message poured in. Daniel felt the immense pressure of navigating a tangled web of information, fragile alliances, and looming threats. Each passing moment seemed to weigh heavier on his shoulders. He knew the most critical point in this harrowing journey was close, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead gnawed at him. Mrs. Lauren, always vigilant, had insisted on staying overnight to help with the children. Her calming presence was a shield, keeping Mia and Henry insulated from the gravity of the situation. Daniel glanced toward the living room where the children slept soundly, Mia curled on the couch under a warm blanket, Henry snug in a makeshift crib. For a moment, love and fear collided in his chest. Mia had become like a daughter to him, and the thought of failing her was unbearable. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. A text from Commissioner James lit up the screen. Team deployed to pick up Sean. He's safe. Monitoring activity at the orphanage. Suspicious movements noted. We need to act soon. Daniel read the message repeatedly, each word fueling his resolve. The moment they had been waiting for was near. Erica Bridges was making her move, and they needed to act fast before she could destroy any evidence or harm another child. He opened Sean's notes on his laptop. Erica had relied on hidden rural routes to move children undetected, avoiding patrols and prying eyes. Daniel knew intercepting these paths would be crucial to rescuing the children and building an airtight case. A soft knock interrupted his focus. Mrs. Lauren stood in the doorway, her expression a mixture of concern and quiet determination. Daniel, I can see it in your eyes you're about to do something dangerous. You don't have to tell me what, but I want you to know we're all with you, Lauren said, her voice trembling slightly. The children and I need you to come back safely. Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion. Thank you, Lauren. That means everything to me. I promise I'll keep everyone safe and make sure Erica faces justice. Please keep looking after Mia and Henry while I'm gone. Knowing they're in your care gives me peace to do what I have to. He replied, placing a hand over hers in gratitude. Lauren nodded firmly, her voice steady despite her visible worry. I'll care for them as if they were my own, but promise me you'll come back. Those kids need you, Daniel, she said before retreating quietly. For a moment, Daniel sat in the silence, reflecting on the chain of events that had brought him here. That fateful night when he stopped to help Mia and Henry had completely altered the course of his life. Now, he found himself at the heart of a battle between justice and corruption. He couldn't fail not for himself, but for the countless lives hanging in the balance. He grabbed his phone and dialed Commissioner James. James, I'm ready. I'm heading to the station now. We need to act before it's too late, Daniel said, his voice firm. I agree, Wilson. The team is ready. Tonight, we take Erica down, James replied. Before leaving, Daniel knelt beside Mia's sleeping form. Her face was serene, untouched by the fear and chaos of reality. He brushed a gentle kiss across her forehead. I'm doing this for you, Mia. I'll make sure you and Henry have the life you deserve, he murmured. Arriving at the station, Daniel was greeted by a buzz of activity. Commissioner James stood at the front of the room, a board behind him covered in maps, photos, and notes. Officers gathered around, their expressions tense but resolute. Glad you're here, Wilson. Let's get to it, James said, gesturing to the board. The plan was laid out in 3 critical phases. Interception 1 team would monitor the hidden transport routes, ready to intercept any suspicious movement. Another would keep watch on the children's home, waiting for the right moment to strike. Raid and rescue once suspicious activity was confirmed, the team would storm the orphanage to rescue the children and arrest Erica and her accomplices. The children's safety was paramount. Evidence collection, the final phase, involved gathering incriminating documents, devices, and any materials to ensure Erica's prosecution. Wilson, you'll lead the evidence collection team, James instructed. We can't afford to miss anything. Every piece of evidence counts. Daniel nodded, his resolve unshaken. Understood. I'll make sure we leave no stone unturned. As the teams moved to their vehicles, the tension was almost palpable. The darkened streets of San Jose seemed to hold their breath, anticipating the storm about to unfold. Daniel climbed into his car, mentally running through every detail of the plan. There was no room for error. A single misstep could jeopardize everything. Driving toward his designated location, Daniel felt the weight of the night ahead pressing on him. It would be long and fraught with danger, but he was ready to face whatever came. For Mia, Henry, and the countless children depending on him, Daniel was determined to make this mission count. The night in San Jose carried a haunting stillness. The streets, usually alive with the city's nighttime energy, lay eerily quiet. Only the occasional rustle of wind and faint murmurs of Mia dreaming somewhere safe broke the oppressive silence. Daniel Wilson sat in his car, parked near the orphanage, his mind racing as he mentally reviewed every detail of the operation. This was at the moment they'd been working toward. The seconds stretched painfully as the team moved into their positions. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to weigh on Daniel's chest. From his vantage point, he watched the dark, deserted streets, his breath steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside him. Suddenly, his radio crackled to life, and Commissioner James's voice came through, steady and urgent. All points in position. Suspicious movements confirmed. Get ready to move. Daniel's pulse quickened. He grabbed the radio, his voice calm but resolute. Let's go get her. Stepping out of the car, he joined the assault team, his heart pounding with a mixture of dread and determination. The operation was in motion. The team divided into two groups. Alpha team intercepted vehicles positioned near the orphanage, likely preparing to transport the children. Bravo team, with Daniel alongside them, moved to breach the building itself. The orphanage loomed in the darkness, a shadow of its former self. What should have been a sanctuary for vulnerable children now stood as a grim monument to neglect, and something far worse. Its once vibrant walls were now cloaked in grime, the facade broken and forgotten. The officers moved swiftly but carefully, taking up their positions. At James's signal, the front doors were breached, and the team poured into the building, weapons raised. Inside, the air was heavy with dampness and decay, the faint stench of mold lingering. Dim, flickering lights cast unsettling shadows on the walls, amplifying the tension. Room by room, the officers cleared the space, finding nothing but neglect and darkness. The lack of children heightened the sense of urgency until hurried footsteps echoed from the floor above. Daniel exchanged a glance with James, and without hesitation, they moved toward the source of the noise. The old wooden stairs creaked under their weight as they ascended. At the end of the narrow hallway, a faint light seeped through the crack of an ajar door. James motioned to the team to prepare for entry, then pushed the door open. Inside the large room, the scene was heartbreaking. Rows of small, battered beds lined the walls. Scattered across them were children of various ages, their faces pale and weary, their plain, worn clothes hinting at the suffering they had endured. Some were asleep, unaware of the chaos unfolding around them. Others sat up, their wide eyes filled with fear as they stared at the armed officers. The silence was broken by a calm, calculating voice. James, you have no place left to hide. From the shadows, Erica Bridges emerged. Tall and poised, her silver hair was pulled into a sleek bun, her crisp, tailored dress an unsettling contrast to the filth surrounding her. Her sharp gaze betrayed no fear, only a cold detachment that sent a chill down Daniel's spine. So you finally come for me, Erica said, her tone almost amused. James didn't waver, his gun trained steadily on her. The only mistake here is yours, Erica using an orphanage as a front for child trafficking. Did you really think you'd get away with it? Erica's eyes shifted to Daniel, and her lips curled into a faint, mocking smile. You think I'm the villain here, Mr. Wilson, she said, her voice low and almost sympathetic. But the world is cruel. These children had no future. I gave them an opportunity to survive. Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Daniel stepped forward, his anger barely contained. Sacrificing innocent lives isn't survival, Erica. It's exploitation. You're no savior, you're a predator. And tonight this ends. Her smile faded, but her icy confidence remained. You think you can stop this? Stop me? I have friends in places you can't even begin to imagine. Even if you bring me down, someone else will take my place. This is bigger than you, bigger than all of you. James stepped closer, his voice unwavering. This isn't bigger than justice, Erica. You will answer for everything you've done. As Erica stood silent, the officers moved quickly, securing the frightened children and guiding them to safety. Daniel glanced around the room, his heart heavy with the weight of what he saw. Each child was a reminder of the evil they were fighting to dismantle. Erica was handcuffed and led out of the room, her expression still defiant. But for Daniel, this wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. The scars left on these children would take years to heal, and there were still pieces of Erica's dark network to uncover. But tonight, one thing was certain: her reign of terror had come to an end. As Daniel watched the children being escorted out to safety, his resolve deepened. For Mia, for Henry, and for every innocent soul who had suffered under Erica's cruelty, he vowed to see this through to the very end. Justice would prevail, no matter the cost. The night in San Jose carried a haunting stillness. The streets lay abandoned, and only the soft whistle of the wind and Mia's faint murmurs broke the silence. Inside Daniel Wilson's apartment, sleep eluded him. Documents and notes lay scattered across the table as he worked tirelessly to piece together every fragment of the investigation. The most grueling part of the journey lay ahead, and Daniel knew there was no room for error. As the operation reached its climax, Commissioner James took charge of the arrest. Erica Bridges, you're under arrest for child trafficking, document forgery, and criminal conspiracy. Surrender now, and you might still have a chance at a fair trial, James declared, his voice unwavering. Erica, realizing she had no escape, raised her hands in surrender. Her cold, calculating gaze betrayed no remorse, but it was clear she knew the end had come. Officers moved in swiftly, securing her in handcuffs. Daniel stood silently nearby, a mixture of relief and resolve washing over him. The nightmare Erica had created was beginning to unravel, but the work ahead was daunting. Evidence needed to be meticulously collected, and the children needed immediate care and protection. The once frightened children were gently guided to safety. Among them, a young girl clung to a worn doll, her wide eyes reflecting fear and exhaustion. Daniel knelt beside her, his voice soft and reassuring. "You're safe now," he said, offering a faint but comforting smile. The girl hesitated, then gave a small nod, a glimmer of hope beginning to surface. Back at the station, Daniel met Jason Walker, the lawyer tasked with ensuring Erica's prosecution was airtight. "You did great, Daniel," Jason said, his tone firm but encouraging. "The evidence is solid. With the children's testimonies and Sean's statement, we've got a strong case. Erica won't escape justice this time." With the legal side in capable hands, Daniel shifted his attention to the children. Social workers and psychologists had arrived to provide the support the children desperately needed. Among them, Mia and Henry were adjusting to their new reality. Mia's resilience shone through as she calmly answered the social workers' questions, her arms protectively wrapped around her little brother. Watching her, Daniel felt a surge of pride and a deep determination to secure a brighter future for them both. Later, discussions turned to temporary placements for the rescued children. The uncertainty they faced weighed heavily on Daniel's heart. Unable to hold back, he approached Mila, one of the social workers overseeing the children's care. "What's going to happen to Mia and Henry?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. "Do they have any family?" Mila's expression softened as she responded. "As far as we know, they don't have any close family. They'll likely be placed in temporary care until a permanent solution can be found." Daniel stood silently for a moment, his thoughts racing. That night in the rain, when he first encountered Mia and Henry, had changed everything for him. They weren't just two children in need, they had become his responsibility, his purpose. "I'd like to apply to become their temporary guardian," Daniel said, his voice resolute yet tinged with emotion. Mila smiled warmly, her eyes reflecting understanding. "This is a significant step, Mr. Wilson. We'll need to conduct an assessment, but given everything you've done for these children, I believe we can begin the process. It won't be easy, but we'll be here to support you every step of the way." Daniel nodded, a mixture of relief and determination flooding him. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, but his resolve was unshakable. Mia and Henry had endured horrors no child should ever face. Now they deserved nothing less than love, safety, and the chance to rebuild their lives. Daniel was ready to fight to ensure they got exactly that. Inside the station, Daniel Wilson met with Jason Walker, the lawyer he had contacted earlier. Jason had been tirelessly preparing legal strategies to ensure Erica Bridges and her network would face justice. "The evidence is strong," Jason assured him. "With the children's testimonies and Sean's statement, we have a solid case." Daniel, filled with immense gratitude, nodded. "These kids deserve justice, and we'll make sure they get it," he replied, his voice steady with determination. As social workers and psychologists supported the rescued children, Daniel kept a watchful eye on Mia and Henry. He marveled at Mia's strength as she began to open up to the professionals, her resilience shining through even after everything she had endured. Watching her, Daniel realized he was witnessing the first steps of a remarkable recovery. During discussions about temporary placements, Daniel approached Mila, one of the social workers. "What's going to happen to Mia and Henry?" he asked, his tone filled with concern. "Do they have any relatives who can take care of them?" Mila shook her head sadly. "As far as we know, they don't have any close family. They'll likely enter temporary care until a more permanent solution is found." Hearing this, Daniel paused, the weight of a life-changing decision settling over him. Looking over at Mia and Henry, he felt a deep sense of purpose. "I'd like to apply to become their temporary guardian," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Mila smiled warmly, her voice encouraging. "This is a big step, Mr. Wilson. But given everything you've done for these children, I believe we can start the process. It won't be easy, but we'll support you every step of the way." Daniel felt a wave of relief tempered by responsibility as he prepared for this monumental shift in his life. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but his resolve was unshakable. Mia and Henry had been through unimaginable hardship, and now they deserved nothing less than a safe, loving home. Even as Daniel adjusted to life with Mia and Henry, the legal battle against Erica's network pressed on. With Commissioner James and his team, Daniel worked relentlessly to dismantle the criminal organization. The story gained traction, with local media shedding light on the atrocities that had taken place, ensuring the public and the legal system remained vigilant. Months passed, and Daniel's bond with Mia and Henry grew deeper with each day. They shared meals, laughter, and quiet moments that slowly transformed them into a family. Determined to make their bond permanent, Daniel began the official process to adopt them. The journey was filled with challenges, but his unwavering love and commitment saw him through. On a bright spring day in San Jose, the adoption was finalized. As they stepped out of the courthouse, Mia slipped her small hand into Daniel's and looked up at him with a radiant smile. "Thank you for everything, Dad," she said softly, her words carrying profound gratitude. Daniel, overwhelmed with emotion, knelt down to embrace her. "No, Mia," he replied, his voice thick with feeling. "I should be thanking you. You and Henry have given me a new life." They held each other tightly, joined by Henry in a moment of pure joy and unity. As they walked through the bustling streets of San Jose, the warmth of the sun illuminating their path, Daniel realized he had found his true purpose. It wasn't in success or accolades, but in the love of his newfound family and the fulfillment of making a positive impact on their lives. Have you ever wondered how a single act of kindness can transform lives forever? In this touching story, we witness Daniel Wilson, a successful businessman, uncover the dark secrets behind an orphanage run by the cunning Erica Bridges. What began as a chance encounter with two abandoned siblings, Mia and Henry, in the rain turned into a courageous journey of justice, love, and redemption. Daniel's relentless pursuit of the truth, alongside brave allies like Commissioner James and Jason Walker, dismantled a dangerous child trafficking network, rescuing countless innocent lives. Through Daniel's determination, Mia and Henry found not just a safe haven, but a loving father who stepped up to give them the life they deserved. Their story reminds us that even in the face of darkness, there's always hope, courage, and the power of doing what's right. It's a powerful example of how a single decision to care can lead to monumental change. If this story touched your heart, we encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Let's spread the message that compassion and determination can make a difference. By sharing, you're helping raise awareness about the importance of protecting vulnerable children and standing up against injustice. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. What part of Daniel's journey moved you the most? How do stories like this inspire you in your own life? Share your feelings and reflections in the comments below. Your voice matters, and we'd love to connect with you. Together, let's keep these conversations alive and continue to inspire one another to bring light into the lives of those who need it most. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey.